What's up guys, if you want to see how to make an aimbot just like that, then watch this video and I'll show you how to do it. First thing you want to do is get Null base from GitHub. The link will be in the description. Even if you've been following the past episodes, make sure you go and get it again because I just updated it, as you can see, like 40 minutes ago. I had to add a few functions and stuff to make this aimbot possible. So make sure you go and download the new one, link in description. So once you've downloaded Null base and you've probably opened the solution file, you'll probably see that there's like a lot of errors and stuff. Go watch part 1, it'll be in the top right of your screen there. In that part, I show you how to get rid of those errors and get a successful compilation. So before I start, this is going to be a viewangle aimbot. In my last aimbot tutorial, it'll be in the top right corner there, you can watch it if you want. That one I did a mouse aimbot, so it simulated a mouse movement toward the enemy. So if you want a mouse aimbot specifically, watch my last aimbot tutorial. In that one I show how you can simulate mouse movements for an aimbot. But in this one we're going to be using a viewangle aimbot, which is way more popular and it's used in most cheats just because of its accuracy and speed. Once you've fixed all the errors and all that, the base comes with bhub, so I'm just going to leave that in there, and I'm going to start with some aimbot functions. So the first thing I want to do is I want to make a function that finds the closest enemy to our crosshair and returns that enemy's base address so that we can aimbot them, so we can aim at them. So I was going to return a D word because I wanted to return the player's base address, and I'm going to just call it find player. So we're going to have a few variables here. First thing is going to be since this base uses the DirectX SDK, I'm going to be using some of the data types from DirectX just because it makes it so much easier instead of making my own structures and stuff like that. So I'm going to be using the D3D vector structure here, and we're going to call this world to screen head. And I'm going to have a D word, and this is going to be the player that we want to aim at. I'm going to set that as null right now because we haven't found the player we want to aim at yet. And then the next thing is just going to be a double, and this is going to be called lowest distance. I'm going to set this to like, I don't know, just 9999, just to start off the loop, so that the first iteration we have something to compare against. So we're going to do a for loop. And I want it to be, I want to start at 1 because I want to skip 0, which is the local player. So I'm going to start at 1 and I'm going to go 32 times to loop through the entity list. So first thing I want to do inside this loop is I want to get the base of this entity that we're at right now. So I'm going entity, get ent base. I'm just going to put I in there, if I can spell. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we want to see if it's an enemy and we want to make sure it's a valid player. So we're just going to do that in one simple if statement, and we're going to go get ent team. I'm going to put the base in there. I'm going to make sure that it's not equal to our team, right? So it's not equal to the local player team. Okay. Also, I want to see if they are a valid enemy to aim at, or if it's an actual player that's alive and all that. So I'm going to say not is alive. I'm going to say is valid. And that also checks if it's alive. It also does a dormant check and stuff like that. So going to do that, and then what else we're going to do, we're going to make sure that they are not in an immunity state. And last thing we're checking for is the immunity state. You see it in like gun game and like some deathmatch servers and stuff. I'll probably put a picture of it on the screen, and that's what it looks like. You know, like the player can't take damage, so don't want to aimbot them when they can't take damage. So we want to do a world to screen here. And we're going to get the head position of the entity. So I'm going to go get ent bone pause. I'm going to put the base. I'm going to put the number 8. The number 8 here represents the bone ID. And currently number 8 is the head bone. Okay, this can change with updates, but it's been number 8 for like quite some time. So after this, we're going to put in W2S head, so it's going to initialize that variable. Okay, next we want to get the size of our screen. So I'm going to do get system metrics. I'm going to find fuck off, and I want to find the X axis. All right, and then I'm going to do the same for the Y axis. All right. Alright, so we've initialized W2S head, well to screen head, and next we're going to calculate the distance from our crosshair. So we're going to say distance equals, so we're going to do this big calculation here. So I'm just going to copy and paste this stuff actually, just to make it quicker. So that's the X axis of the screen, and we're going to half it, and we want to subtract the X axis of W2S head, and I'm going to put 2 there. So the 2 here means we want to square root it because it's the power function, so we want to have this to the power of 2. Okay, and we're going to add the power of basically this thing. I'll copy this entire thing, and I'm going to change this to Y for the Y axis, and change this to Y, and that's basically it. Okay, and then another bracket, and that's it. Let me just do this so it's a little easier to understand. Alright, so what we're doing here is we're getting the distance from the entity's head location on our screen from our crosshair. So we're getting the distance from our crosshair to the enemy's head. Okay, so all we're doing is we're just squaring the x-axis of our screen minus the x-coordinate of the player's head plus the y-axis of our screen halved minus the y-axis of the player's head. Okay, so we're square rooting those two, and then we're squaring each of those and summing them together, and then we're just square rooting it. I also forgot something up here. In these brackets here, you want to put base. That should, yeah. Alright, so once we've got the distance from our crosshair, we want to say if that distance is less than the lowest distance. So if it's the closest to our crosshair right now, we want to say the lowest distance is that, and the player that we want to aim at right now would be that person, okay? Because right now they're currently the closest to our crosshair. So that's pretty much it. And then right at the bottom here, before the last bracket, we want to just return the player that we got. Okay. So this is how we find the player that we want to aim at. Basically, all we do is we make sure that it's an enemy, it's valid, and that they're not in some immunity state right now. Okay, and then we make sure that they're the closest to our crosshair, and then we return that player. Now the next thing we want to do is the actual aimbot function. So I'm going to make this a void, and I'm just going to call it aimbot, and we want to know the player that we want to aim at. So first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that the player that we got is not null, otherwise that would be me. What a joke. We want to make sure that they're not null, because, well, what the fuck are you gonna aim at if it's null? So we want to make sure that well, I'm gonna do this. So I'm gonna do this spotted check. It's kind of like a really easy way of doing like a viz check. Basically all this is doing is like if they're spotted, so if you can see that person, it's going to aimbot them. So it's kind of like a viz check, like if they're visible you can aimbot them, just to help it look more legit. And then we're going to have a hotkey here. I'm just going to make it left click. Okay, so if the enemy is spotted, so if the enemy is visible, and you're holding down left click, so you want to shoot or whatever, it's going to aimbot them. You can change this to any key you want. I just put left click because that's what I prefer. You can make it right click or any key on your keyboard. Just look up virtual key codes and then you'll be able to put that in there, and that'll be the hotkey to use. So the first thing we want to do in this function here, what we want to do now is we want to actually get the aim angles. So I'm just going to create a vector 3 here. I'm going to say aim angles. I'm going to use the calc angle function that's in null base, and I'm just going to pass a couple parameters. So you got the source and the destination. Basically that means where the local player is and then where you want to aim. So I'm going to put the local player position, which is as easy as this. Get local player pos. Get local pos, sorry. And then I'm going to put the player we want to aim at. I'm just going to get their position. So I'm going to say get ent pos, and I'm going to say player to aimbot. Okay. So I'll go in this function here in calc angle. It might be a little advanced. To explain it in depth, I might need to do it in a separate video just because I don't want this one to be too long. So if you guys want me to fully explain the math and trigonometry in this function, please let me know. I'll be happy to do a video just on calculating this aim angle. But I'll run through it quickly. I do have comments in this, and this will be in null base as well. Basically, in the start here, you've got this square root function. It looks very complicated, but that's because it's made to be completely optimized, and it's just a square root function, so it square roots whatever the input is there, and it's much faster than the normal function you'd use. After that, we just get the delta between the source vector and the destination vector, and once we have the delta, we can then square root the x and y, and then we can get we square root that, and then we get the hypotenuse. All right, so that's Pythagoras theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we find the hype, and that's the vector that we want to aim at. Okay, so that's the vector towards the enemy. So what these two lines here do is they use sine and tangent, and they use the hypotenuse that we calculated, and with that information they can calculate the angle that we need to aim at the enemy. Okay, and also this bit right here. And also this bit right here looks extremely complicated if you're not really used to this sort of stuff. So all this code does, it's just like this if statement here. If delta.x is greater than or equal to 0. So basically, if delta.x is positive, we want to add 180 to angles.y. Okay, basically what it's doing is it's just checking the first bit of delta.x, and then it's reversing that to see if it's positive or negative. And so if it's positive, it'll be 1, and 1 times 180 is 180, so it'll add 180 to angles.y. Otherwise, if it's negative, then it's going to be 0 times 180, and that's going to add nothing. So it's the exact same as this if statement here, but it just is going to run way faster. And there is a good forum post that you should check out that explains calc angle way better than I ever could. I'll link it in the description and probably show a photo of it on the screen. Yeah, so that post is where I first learned aimbot and calc angle and all that. So it's a really good post. What we want to do is I'm going to be adding a recoil control, which I did not do in my last aimbot video. And a lot of people asked on how to do it. So it's just one line of code here, and I'll show you how to do it. So you just go aim angles minus local player, and you want to get the punch angles. Okay, and the punch angles is basically just the recoil, and we're going to multiply it by 2 to make it really strong recoil control. If you want it to be a little softer and more legit, you could probably lower this number here. Also, if you want it to be like more stiff, 2.5 works pretty well as well. Once we've found the aim angle and we've compensated for the recoil, we can then set our view angle to aim at the enemy. So just going to go set local view angles, and I'm going to pass aim angles, and that's it. So what we do here is we make sure that the player that we want to aimbot is valid, and then we make sure that they are visible. We make sure that we're holding left click or whatever hotkey you want. We calculate the angle, we compensate for recoil, and then we aim at them. So I'm going to build this, I'm going to show you that it works, and then I'll show you how to smooth the aimbot, so how you can make it look more legit. Alright, so let's see if the aimbot works. Works perfectly. So if you don't want the aimbot to be that obvious, I'm going to show you how you can smooth the aimbot to make it look more legit and aim at the enemy slower. Okay, so if you want to know how to smooth your aimbot, all you got to do is you need to get our current angles. And then we need to find the delta between our aim angles and our current angles. So all we need to do is just aim angles minus our current angles. And then once we found the delta, we can go in here, and all we need to do is our current angles plus the delta divided by whatever smooth value you want. So I'm going to put 20. This can be any number. This could be 100, 1, whatever you want. 20 gives like a pretty good smoothing, so I'll just build that and show you guys what it looks like. So this is what the smoothing looks like. As you can see, it doesn't snap on like it does when you just put no smoothing at all. It's a lot softer. As you can see, so that's the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe at 1,000 subs, which I'm almost at. I'm about 100 away from 1,000. I'm going to be doing basically this series, but I'm going to be showing how to do all of this stuff internally. So I'm going to make an internal aimbot and glow ESP and all that stuff. So if you're interested in that, leave a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.